I'm Deontay Jenkins, and here's what's on my mind. Take a look at this picture. Is square A or square B brighter? Take a look at this. Which diamond in the middle is brighter? How about this? Which square is brighter? Last one. Which of these squares in the center is brighter? Well, if you pick the left, then you're wrong. And if you pick the right, then you're still wrong. They're the exact same. In each instance, they're the exact same. This is what is known as value in color theory, and it's one of the three most important things to know when mastering color. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This spectrum shows the entire range of what the human eye can see as color. Every other color are just different shades of one of these. These colors are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and violet. Indigo used to be in there, but they kicked that motherfucker out a long time ago. So now we have Roy GBV, and this is the foundation of color theory. Now, to understand how to use these colors and how these colors work within art, you need to apply hue, chroma, and value, which we talked about before. Hue is just the pure color. So the hue of red would just be pure red. Now I can take the hue and change it to get a different hued color, such as green. Now chroma refers to the saturation of a color. So I can turn the chroma all the way up on a color and have really bright, richly saturated colors, or I can turn it down and have very muted colors. And finally, the value of a color represents its brightness. That also changes the shade of a color. So you can have a very bright electric green or a very dark, almost forest green. Now all of these things work in conjunction with each other to create color. And it's important to know this to know that your colors will turn out the way that you want them to. For instance, if I took these squares and adjusted the colors a little bit, it would make the inside squares look completely different than they did before. Like I said, each inside square has the exact same value, meaning they're the exact same color, the exact same hue, the exact same value, the exact same chroma, but the outside squares are different. So putting this green square in a yellow box versus a lime green box makes the inside square look different. As you can see, the green within the yellow box looks a lot more bright and inviting, whereas the green in the green box looks a lot more dull. The thing that separates the masters of color from the amateurs is knowing how to use color at different levels of brightness and saturation in order to get a desired effect, and knowing how to do that in conjunction with other colors. So going back to these squares, if you know that you want your green to stand out a little bit more, you know putting it inside of a green box will not make it stand out as much as putting it inside of a yellow box. But why do we need to know this? Why is it important to be able to do this? It's important because you need to be able to separate color and use it to create moods and get an emotional response for what you're doing. You see, how we perceive a color is based on how it interacts with other colors. Colors are separated into warm and cool tones, and how they interact with each other is called color harmony. And there are different types of color harmony. You have monochromatic, analogous, triadic, tetratic, complementary, and split complementary. And knowing these will help you have way more control over the images that you're creating. So let's go over them. Let's start with monochromatic because it's the most simple and easiest to understand. Many people think that monochrome is just black and white images, which is to say many shades of gray. But in actuality, monochrome is always just the same color, just at different values. Now that we know what values are, we can use values to create a monochrome image. So, monochromatic color harmony uses the same color at different values to make it brighter or darker. So if you're a photographer or a cinematographer, filmmaker, whatever, you're adding light or subtracting light. If you're a painter or anybody that uses actual color palettes or anything like that, you'd be adding more white or more black, just to make it brighter or darker. A monochromatic color palette creates a simple, clean aesthetic. It offers the greatest amount of unity for colors, and it's easy to use with not much room for error. But keep in mind, it can get a little boring if there's not enough change in values between areas. The reason I chose to talk about monochromatic images first is because it uses hue, chroma, and value the most clearly. One perfect example of this comes from Blade Runner 2049. This is a monochromatic image that uses different shades of orange throughout. No matter if it's in the darker areas or the lighter areas, it's still different shades of orange. Or check out this one from the film Moonlight. In this scene, it's using different shades of blue to create a monochromatic image. Now, expanding just a little bit from monochromatic images, we have analogous colors. Analogous colors are all located right next to each other on the color wheel. This low contrast combination is common and often found in nature, making it one of the most instinctively harmonious color pairings. It's very similar to a monochromatic image, but a bit more dynamic. You're changing the hue more often than you're changing the value with this. So you use this by picking one base color and then choosing 2 or 3 analogous colors to accent it. When you're doing this, you typically only want to stay with either warm or cool colors. That way it won't overcomplicate the visual harmony. And then you bring in different values to change the shades of the color in order to add even more visual interest. You can see how well it works here in this photograph. Look at the flowers. They're different shades of red and orange and yellow, and then her dress, and also her skin tone. Fun fact, everybody's skin tone is a different shade of orange, but you can see here the visual harmony that using analogous colors creates. Now beyond that, a triadic harmony uses 3 colors evenly spaced along the color wheel. For instance, yellow, blue, and red. Triadic harmonies are vibrant without having that forced look of complementary colors. With triadic colors to have balance, you also want to use one primary color and use the other 2 as accents. This way the other colors enhance rather than distract. A good way to do this is to have your primary color be a little bit darker and then paler shades of the other colors to accent it. That way it's not overwhelming, it's accented, it feels more harmonious and balanced. That's not to say you can't use really rich and saturated colors for all of them, but it will be a little bit more jarring. If that's what you're going for, go for it. But for a more subtle example, look at this, the screen. The primary color here is the red, and then you see the yellows and the blues are a lot more pale. Now I can raise the chroma of the yellows and the blues, but it feels a little different. But again, if that's the look that you're going for, more power to you. Do what you want, it's your art. Now for tetratic color harmony, there are 2 types, regular and square. These colors use 4 harmonies ranged in 2 complementary pairs. Tetratic harmonies offer the most variety and tend to be more eye-catching, so they're better used with flashier subject matter. But keep in mind, because you're using so many different colors, it can often be difficult to strike an effective color balance. Just like in the last 2, the best way to use this is to use one color as the dominant color and use the other 3 as accents. That way it won't feel like a kindergartner's finger painting. You should also try to balance warm and cool colors so it won't feel overwhelming. Let the warm bring up the cool and let the cool bring down the warm. Check out how it's used here. The part of the image that's the most eye-catching is the center, the door, with the blue, the green, and the yellow accenting it perfectly. It's very eye-catching, but also feels very harmonious and balanced. Now, complementary colors is probably what we're most familiar with, and they're always located on the opposite end of the color wheel. So yellow to purple, orange to blue, red to green. We know this, but it's also one of the most difficult harmonies to pull off. That's because both colors can be very overwhelming, especially when they're used at their full chroma or saturation. Complementary colors can be great for making something stand out or drawing the eye to your focal point. But be careful, because again, you really don't want to make them feel overwhelming. If you find it too strong, what you want to do is change the value of one of the colors. It'll still be a complementary color, but the value change will make it less overwhelming. A great use of the complementary color scheme is in the film Amelie. It has very bright saturated reds and often muted green. Another one commonly used in movies is Teal and Orange. You see this all the time. Many people argue that it's overused, but it's also one of the most common complementary color schemes, especially when it comes to light and dark. That's because shadows often tend to be cooler and skin often tends to be warmer. So when working with light and shadow, seeing warm light and cool light makes sense. Now, going a little bit beyond that, you have split complementary colors. Instead of using 2 complementary colors, this variation uses 1 base color and 2 colors adjacent to the directly opposing color on the color wheel. This color harmony still offers contrast, much like a regular complementary color scheme, but it's less aggressive and less overwhelming, and it offers a little bit more versatility. Here's a good example of it in interior design. Here's another really great example of it in fashion. Now, combining color harmonies with hue, chroma, and values and making them different shades can create a whole bunch of different moods for you. And to wrap all this up, I'll show you just that. Let's take this monochromatic image from Moonlight again. Now, if I completely changed the hue and made it warm, it feels completely different, right? But what if I changed the chroma and made it less saturated? What about the value? What if I brought the value up and made it brighter? Now look at these images side by side. They're the same image, but feel completely different just based on the colors. Knowing color theory is not only important for a visual artist, it's essential. If you don't know how to use color and use it at its different values and shades and hues and chromas and saturations and all of that, and use it in different harmonies, you're not taking your work to its fullest potential. Remember, changing one color can make another color look good or bad. Changing the value can change the mood. And if you want to be in control of how your audience views your art, then you need to know this. And if you don't know this, I promise you, you will not make it to the next level of artistry. But then again, what do I know? Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below. Tell me how you use color theory. Make sure you follow me on social media. Check out some of my latest short films here. And come back next time, because I think you're pretty cool. Peace.